3 weeks ago, we landed at a small airport somewhere in northern Alaska. I remember the plane descending over the forest, endless coniferous masses, rare glimpses of roads, and snow everywhere. There were 3 of us, me, cameraman Jake, and a local guide named Tom. We were filming material for a small documentary project, a series about abandoned places in the north where people had disappeared. Nothing big, just content for a channel with a few thousand subscribers. Tom met us at the terminal exit, a man about 50, in a massive khaki jacket, with a weathered face and tired eyes. He shook our hands, took our backpacks and threw them in the bed of an old pickup. Jake immediately started filming the terminal, the snow, the truck, the forest outside the window. He was always filming. Tom got behind the wheel and said without turning around that the roads here are unpredictable. The weather changes in an hour, and 3 days is the maximum. If a storm starts, we leave immediately. We agreed. We had a map, GPS, radios. A week's worth of food. We were ready. The drive took about 2 hours. We drove along a narrow road surrounded by coniferous forest. Sometimes we passed houses, small, wooden, with smoke from chimneys. People lived here, but the farther we drove from the airport, the less often they appeared. By the end of the journey, we hadn't seen a single house for 40 minutes. The base turned out to be a wooden cabin on the edge of a small clearing. Inside it was warm. The stove was working. It smelled of smoke, old wood, and dampness. A generator hummed behind the wall. Tom showed us the rooms, explained how to use the stove, and went to his own. We unpacked. Jake checked the camera. I reviewed the maps and route. Everything was clear. Tomorrow morning we go to the mine, shoot material, return by evening. 3rd day, reserve. 4th, back to the airport. In the evening there was a knock at the door. I opened it. On the threshold stood an elderly woman with a scarf on her head and a basket in her hands. She handed me bread wrapped in cloth and said quietly, without looking me in the eye, that in winter you can hear the mine making noise, and it is better not to go there at night. I thanked her and took the bread. She nodded and left. Tom chuckled from his room. Local superstitions. Everyone here says that. Jake shrugged and returned to his camera. I closed the door and didn't think about it anymore. The wind started after midnight. Quiet at first, then stronger. The house creaked. The beams cracked. I lay in my sleeping bag listening to these sounds. An old house in the forest. Wind. Winter. Nothing scary. Around 2 a.m, the door opened. Jake went out on the porch. I heard him light a cigarette. Then a long silence. I got up and went to the window. He stood at the edge of the porch with his back to me, looking into the darkness. There was nothing around, just snow and forest. No lights, no movement. Emptiness. When he came back, I asked if everything was okay. He nodded, shaking snow off his jacket, and said yes, just very empty. He'd never seen anything like it. I didn't. He asked what exactly he meant. We set out early in the morning. Tom walked ahead, setting the pace. We followed him in single file. First me, then Jake. The snow was dense, packed by the wind, but slippery. The trail led over a low slope, then down into a wide valley. I noticed almost immediately, the sound started disappearing. At first I thought the wind was drowning out voices, but that wasn't it. The sound just got lost. There was no echo. When Jake spoke, his voice sounded muffled, as if through glass. The snow absorbed everything. We walked for about an hour. The valley grew wider. Nothing around but snow and sparse trees. No tracks, no animals, not even birds could be heard. The mine was located at the edge of the valley, at the foot of a small hill. We saw it from afar, rusty metal beams half buried in snow, old rails sticking out from under the snow cover. The entrance was closed with a grating, but it had long since rusted and partially collapsed. Inside it was dark. It smelled of dampness and metal. Tom stopped at the entrance and lit a cigarette. Jake started filming beams, rails, the entrance, the valley behind us. I walked around, took notes, photographed details. An abandoned place. Nothing special. We spent about 2 hours there. Tom told us a bit about the mine, its history. It operated in the mid-last century, then closed. Officially, economic impracticality. And officially, several people disappeared. No bodies, no explanations. They just closed it and forgot about it. Jake filmed all of this. He was focused, working quickly and professionally, and then he stopped and said there was someone there. Without taking his eyes off the viewfinder, I turned around. Where? He pointed to the slope on the right. You see, I looked. The slope was empty. Just snow and sparse bushes. There's no one there. Jake insisted he saw a figure. A person was standing there. Tom approached us, looked in that direction, and shook his head. The snow plays tricks. Light refracts strangely. It happens here all the time. It seems like you see movement, shadows, figures, but it's just snow. Jake lowered the camera. He was sure he saw something. I could see it in his face, but he said nothing. We continued working, but the mood changed. No one spoke about it out loud, but we all became more careful. Movements slower, glances more attentive. Jake looked around more often. Tom smoked more than usual. I took notes but couldn't to concentrate. Around 3 in the afternoon, the wind began to pick up. Tom noticed first. He raised his head, looked at the sky, and said curtly that we need to leave. Now, we started packing quickly. Jake packed the camera. I threw my backpack on my back. Tom was already heading for the trail, but there was no trail. In the 2 or 3 hours we spent at the mine, snow had covered our tracks. Everything became the same. White field, white slopes, white sky. No landmarks. The wind lifted snow from the ground. Visibility dropped to a few meters. Tom took out a compass. Jake turned on the GPS. I unfolded the map, but the wind almost tore it from my hands. The compass showed north, but that didn't help. GPS wasn't catching a signal. The storm was jamming the satellites. The map was useless without landmarks. We started walking blindly. Tom walked ahead, trying to remember the way from memory. We followed him silently, staying close to each other so as not to get lost in the white haze. Snow came down in sheets. The wind howled so loud it was impossible to talk. I walked with my head down, looking only at Tom, his feet ahead. If I lost sight of him even for a minute, I wouldn't be able to find him. We walked for 2 hours, maybe 3. I lost track of time. Cold seeped through my jacket, gloves, boots. My feet were wet. My hands were numb. Breathing became harder. The air was dense, icy. Each breath required effort. Tom stopped. I almost crashed into him. He looked back and I saw his face. Tired, tense, but calm. He was shouting something, but the wind drowned out the words. Then he pointed forward. There, through the snow, trees were visible. A line of forest. We reached it and stopped. There was nowhere to take shelter, but at least the trees blocked some of the wind. We set up the tent between the trees. Or rather, we tried. The wind tore off the tarp. Snow poured inside. We worked silently, struggling to hold the structure. When we finally finished, we crawled inside and closed the entrance. Inside it was cold. The tent was wet. The backpacks too. The sleeping bags were damp. We sat back to back, trying to warm ourselves with body heat. No one spoke. We just breathed and waited. The wind didn't die down all night. It beat against the tent, rocked it, tore the tarp. I didn't sleep. Jake didn't either. I could feel it. Tom maybe dozed. His breathing was even. Somewhere around midnight I heard a sound. Not the wind. Something else. A dull crack, as if something heavy had fallen nearby. Then silence. Then the crack again. I listened. Jake turned his head and whispered, asking if I heard it. I nodded. We waited. The sound didn't repeat. Tom woke up, looked at us and asked what happened. I answered that nothing. Must have imagined it. He nodded and closed his eyes again. But I knew it wasn't nothing. And Jake knew. In the morning there was silence. Absolute, dead silence. The wind had died. The snow had stopped. I opened the tent entrance and looked out. Everything was covered with an even layer of snow. Our tracks were almost gone, as if we hadn't spent the night here. The trees stood motionless. The sky was white, without a single gap. Tom climbed out of the tent, looked around and said to go scout. 15 minutes. He took his backpack and walked forward, toward where, according to him, the trail should be. Jake and I stayed by the tent. We lit a small fire, tried to warm up. Jake was silent. So was I. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Half an hour. An hour. Tom wasn't back. We started calling for him, shouting his name. Voices disappeared into the white emptiness, not returning as an echo. Nothing. Silence. Jake looked at me and said we need to go. We followed his tracks. They were clear, deep, leading straight ahead. We walked for about 10 minutes. The tracks went up a small slope. We climbed after them, and then they disappeared. Just disappeared, as if Tom had reached this point and evaporated. Around. Smooth snow. No prints. Nothing. Jake stopped. He slowly turned around his axis, looking at the snow, at the slope, at the trees below. Then he said quietly that this is impossible. I came closer, crouched down, studying the snow surface. No signs that the tracks had been blown over by wind. Just clean, untouched surface. As if they had never been there, we continued walking forward, trying to find anything. Shouted. Searched. Nothing. Tom had disappeared. We searched for him all day. We walked in circles, returned to the place where the tracks disappeared, went off in different directions again. Jake was on the edge. I could see him barely holding it together. We both understood that the chances of finding Tom were almost zero. But we couldn't just leave. I examined every section of snow, checked every fold of terrain, looked under every bush. Jake did the same. We worked silently, methodically, like robots. Shouting was useless. The sound got lost anyway. By evening, we returned to the tent. Strength was running out. Food was running low. Water too. We sat by the fire and were silent. The fire was weak, the wood damp. Smoke stung our eyes. Jake finally spoke and asked what we should do. I didn't. If we stay here, we die. If we leave, we abandon Tom. But Tom was most likely already dead, frozen somewhere in the snow, or fell into a crack, or I didn't want to think about other options. I said we going forward, that we have to get out. Otherwise, we will all stay here. Jake nodded. He understood. The next morning, we packed up the tent and went. Without a map, without GPS, just on luck. We walked all day without stopping. Jake walked silently, not looking back. I walked behind him, counting steps so I wouldn't go crazy. By evening, we reached high ground. From there, you could see farther. And I saw a power line. Civilization. We reached it in an hour. There was a road, old, covered with snow, but a road. We walked along it, and after a few kilometers, we saw a house. Small, wooden, with smoke from the chimney. There was a phone there. I called rescue services. The helicopter arrived in 3 hours. During that time, snow started. Not as strong as before, but dense, persistent. The pilot said we were on time. Another hour and it would have been impossible to fly. They lifted us aboard, gave us blankets, hot tea, asked about Tom. I told them everything, how he went to scout, how the tracks disappeared, how we searched for him all day. They nodded. They had heard such stories before. The next day, the rescue team returned to the valley. They searched for Tom for 3 days. Found our tent, our tracks, the place where his prints disappeared. They descended into an old crack near the mine. There were tracks there, fresh ones, but there was no person. Official conclusion: died as a result of a snowstorm. Body not found. Unofficial. No one spoke about it out loud, but I saw their faces. They knew something wasn't right here. I returned in the summer. There was no snow. The valley looked completely different. Green, calm, almost beautiful. The trail was clearly visible. The mine stood in its place, rusty and quiet. No cracks, no collapses. I stood at the edge of the valley and looked down. The wind was warm, quiet. Birds sang in the forest. Everything was normal, but I remembered what it looked like in winter. I remembered the white emptiness. I remembered how Tom's tracks disappeared. I remembered the silence. Sometimes we believe that a person disappeared in the snow, that it was an accident, nature, a mishap, but the snow was here only on top of reality. And what was beneath it, I don't, do you know? And probably don't want to know.
Thank you for watching, guys. See you in next video. Bye bye.